Hey, literature. Today I want to introduce the big ideas of the new pieces of literature that we'll be moving on to. You'll need to understand the difference between two words, individualism and collectivism. Any word that ends with the root ism is a belief. So, just looking at these words, perhaps you can even guess what an individualist culture or a collectivist culture believes. We know a lot about individualism from self-reliance, right? Be yourself, don't listen to what other people believe you should do with your life, follow your own path, and that means you are truly self-reliant, you are truly an individual. Well, if we now apply that to cultures or groups of people, an individualist culture is one that prizes the individual and individual goals over group or collective goals. Let's take a look at some differences between these two cultures and then consider which one the US would be. As I said, it's most important in an individualist culture for the individual goals and achievement to be met. We ask people, well, what do you want specifically? Not necessarily what do we want. This type of society or culture would promote self-expression, individual thinking, and personal choice. All of those match up with that transcendentalist core concept of individualism. Individualist cultures generally value personal privacy and space because what is mine individually is important. And I just like this note that I found online. In terms of business, it's more about competition, and you are expected to be a leader in business as opposed to a member of the team. Shift over to our collectivist cultures, and now the group is more important than the individual. In this culture, we would think about the needs of our entire group instead of just the needs of ourselves. So we focus on group goals. What would be best for all of us, not just what would be best for me. This type of culture promotes respect for others and teamwork because, of course, we're trying to uplift an entire group instead of trying to just uplift a single individual. Relationships, collaboration, sharing, these are all important concepts. And in business, in a collectivist culture, it might be more collaborative, working together, being a member of a team, doing your part for the good of the group, as opposed to trying to achieve things for yourself. Now, looking at these two lists, I want to give you a couple examples of the US. And as I give you these examples, consider, is that individualist or collectivist? Many of us live in single family homes, meaning we don't live with a group of people, or if we do live with a group, it's a group of our choosing, meaning your parents chose to have you, right? Or if you choose to get married and live with that person, or if you choose to live with a roommate. But mostly, homes are described as single family homes. Let's talk about nursing homes. Often, when people get to a certain age, they don't move in with their relatives in the US. They go to a nursing home, and perhaps you have older family that lives with you, but that's pretty rare to live multi-generationally. For the most part, that's why nursing homes exist in the US, is to care for elderly people when their families, or perhaps they don't have families left, but when their families don't feel that they can care for them anymore. Let's consider grades. In class, you do work, you turn in your work, and then you earn a grade. So thinking about those three examples, single family housing, nursing homes, and individual grades, maybe you can already guess, but America is a highly individualist culture. We value competition, being the best, getting ahead, doing what you can for yourself, and putting yourself first. Now, this is interesting because if you've ever applied for a job, you know that communication and collaboration are often very important to employers. However, it is expected that you'll become a leader in your career someday. And taking a look at these examples of single-family homes, nursing homes, and individual grades, hopefully you can see that we're highly individualist. If we were collectivist, then single-family homes might not exist, right? We might have families living together and sharing a space and sharing responsibilities like taking the trash out or making meals. Nursing homes might not exist because older generations would just live with their families. And maybe instead of you earning your own personal grade, as a whole class, we would earn one grade that we collectively work towards. Now, some of you who don't earn good grades are thinking, what a great idea, let's do this. While others of you who do earn very good grades are thinking, no, I don't want you to weigh me down, right, or hold me back. But consider how education would change if you had to care about your neighbor's grade, if you had to care about how your friend is doing on that test, and if you didn't just have to care about yourself, it would be a very different mindset shift that we would have to go through. Now, these cultures exist usually by society. So, as I said, individualist cultures are generally Western or American, but collectivist cultures also exist in the world. There certainly are countries and societies that believe that the group is more important than the individual. So, when we're looking at these lists, I don't want you to think necessarily one is good and one is bad. There are good and bad things about both, of course. And as we read our next couple pieces of literature, I'll ask you to consider what is positive about individualist and collectivist cultures and what might be negative or what might be missing because of them. The first piece that we read for this unit is called Harrison Bergeron, and it's a short story by Kurt Vonnegut, and it's certainly a collectivist society that believes that the good of the group is better than the individual. And in this society, they wanted to make everyone equal. So to make everyone equal, they took away certain things from people who had more. And I'll ask you to look for that in the text. The second and major text that we'll read in this unit is called Anthem, and it's written by a Russian author, Ayn Rand. And this collective society in the novel is so equal and so group focused that they've actually gotten rid of a core word that we use every day in conversation. They've gotten rid of the word I. They are not allowed to say, I did this, or I want this, or I think this, because that would be far too individualist for their culture. So, how interesting to think that a culture could move so collective that we're actually getting rid of words from our daily vocabulary. As we read these two texts, we'll shift from what we've been doing with close reading and focus on our next skill, which is literary lens analysis. And I'll explain in a future video, but literary lenses are just ways to look at the text in a different way, to change our perspective, to shift our viewpoint, and to use our brains a little bit differently. So please continue to think about individualist and collectivist cultures as we read these pieces of literature.